Now, Ruth Bader Ginsburg is called a notorious RBG for a reason. She gives no fucks. And she recently said something in an interview with Katie Couric that I actually disagree with. Now, in this interview, when asked by Couric how she feels about quarterback Colin Kaepernick and other athletes basically refusing to stand for the national anthem, she said, quote, "I think it's really dumb of them." Now, already I'm like, whoa, wait a minute here. So, like, I've, done segments where I praise Ginsburg on some of her positions, on some of her decisions, but at the same time, on this, I cannot disagree with her more. Now, I respect her opinion, right? But I strongly disagree with it. I don't think it's stupid at all. I think it's actually, they're doing it for a good reason. They're doing it for a good point. Now, she continues. Would I arrest him for doing it? No. I think it's dumb and disrespectful. I would have the same answer if you asked me about flag burning. I think it's a terrible thing to do, but I wouldn't lock a person up for doing it. I would point out how ridiculous it seems to me to do such an act. Now, Kirk then asked, but when it comes to these football players, you may find their actions offensive, but what you're saying is, it's within their rights to exercise those actions? And of course, her answer is, yes, absolutely. It is absolutely is their rights. It's called the First Amendment. It's called protest. And so she says, if they want to be stupid, there's no law that should be preventative. If they want to be arrogant, there's no law that prevents them from that. What I would do is strongly take issue with the point of view that they're expressing when they do that. Now, as I said, I completely disagree with her on this, on the first part, but on the second part, the fact that it's her right, or their right, absolutely. And yes, people should not be locked up for it. Now, that's a big difference that we see between, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who's one of the court's liberals, and a lot of the conservatives who also are very offended that somebody had the gall to sit during the national anthem. They would say, hey, let's lock them up, right? Or let's do something, let's punish them somehow for refusing to stand for the flag, which is actually anathema to what freedom actually means. Ron, what do you think?
I think that she's wrong. I think I guess the one thing, and I actually said this too, was a little bit of a criticism, not necessarily at him, but at, is this really going to help you because of the platform you chose? The NFL is an extremely nationalistic organization. It's an extremely patriotic, quote, organization. So when Colin Kaepernick first did that, one of my responses was, even though I think it's cool he's taking a stand for something, and I'm all about that, I kind of thought, I was like, man, I wonder if that was the best judgment call, because the conversation's not going to be about Black Lives Matter. The conversation's going to be about him, and it's going to be about patriotism and what this flag means, and derp or derp. And of course, that ended up being what it was. Now, I kind of regret saying that initially, because what I didn't realize at the time, and I realize now, was that was not his first action. He had been tweeting, he had been doing other stuff, he had been pretty active on social media. Black Lives Matter was an important cause to him, and lo and behold, unarmed black people keep getting killed by police with no consequence. So this was his next idea. So, and not that I was ever against what he did. I was always in favor of what he did and applauded him for it. I questioned the judgment on picking that platform for his sake. But now I realize, I was like, no, I get it. That wasn't his first effort. That was finally, this is what I'm going to do. And you know what? Anybody that says, oh, that was stupid or that was arrogant or a failure, well, I'll ask you this. Were you aware of the third verse in the national anthem that we've omitted? Because I didn't know about it. I didn't know about it until this happened. And I think a lot of people did not know about it until this happened.
That's such a great point on that, especially in the third verse. And I talked about that when I first covered the Kaepernick story. And, I mean, man, talking about how Francis Scott Key was an incredible racist and a slave owner. So this guy, wrote this whole stanza out of spite. Like, damn free blacks fighting for the British. They're going to drown in their blood. They're going to drown in their own blood. Right?
Yeah,
After the Patriots take over.
It's been whitewashed out of history, and it's okay for somebody to point that out. The way this nation was built, people are supposed to point that out. We're supposed to move forward, and so, yeah, I mean, I think that maybe that was kind of what she had in mind when she said it was stupid. Maybe she thought that the forum he chose was not the wisest for those reasons, but maybe she wasn't aware that this was not his first rodeo, so to speak. This was not his first attempt. This was a later attempt. You can't be like, oh, well, all of a sudden he has this cause. No, he's had the cause for a while. And, he was fed up. And a lot of the critiques against him are very small. The whole like, oh, well, he makes millions. Okay, so because he's a great athlete, he can't notice injustice. Didn't we used to celebrate when athletes would use their platform to shine light on those injustices? Yeah, but to compare him to Muhammad Ali and to compare him to all these great boxers that took stands for racial injustice and stuff, that's not right. Really? You mean all of those boxers that applauded him? All of those people that you're celebrating, that you're saying he doesn't have a right to be compared to, that are applauding him and comparing him to themselves? So they're wrong? They're wrong then too? Oh, well, no, I guess they... Okay, so they celebrate him. So what's your critique of the guy? What's your critique of the guy? Well, it's disrespectful to the men and women in uniform. Well, that's a straw man, because this is about corruptions in law enforcement. This has nothing to do with the men and women in uniform. I mean, if we're going to talk about corruption, another corruption that I'd like to see get fixed is that we don't put our men and women in uniform in harm's way unless it is absolutely 1,000% necessary. We usually don't follow that rule. But, I mean, so all the criticisms I've seen of Colin Kaepernick have been just very, very small and very, very refutable.
Yeah, in this one, I mean, by somebody that I actually do have a lot of respect for, it just kind of like, well, look, she doesn't get it, right? She doesn't understand. She's not living in that reality, and she is part of the justice system. Now, we're not saying that it's her fault. And that's the other thing. Yeah, she's a Supreme Court justice. That doesn't mean that that everything that's going on in the African American community, with policing and stuff, comes down to her, or that she's complicit somehow. No, what we're saying is that she doesn't get it. She doesn't understand. And you would think that her, of all people, could find these statistics. I mean, for example, you've got African Americans that make up 30% of the population. They make up 60% of the people in prison, over half. That is the disparity that we're pointing out. Another disparity, students of color face harsher punishments in school than their white peers, often leading to that school-to-prison pipeline that we're talking about. And once convicted, black offenders often receive longer sentences than white people who do the same crime. So those are the disparities in the system. This is what this conversation is meant to start. And if you want to think that it's dumb, like I've had an issue with flag burning. But you know what? At the same time, I'm like, do whatever. That's protest. I don't personally like it. It makes me a little uncomfortable because I do love America. Yes, I'm a liberal that loves America. Oh my God. I just want to make it a better place. And this in order to do that, you also have to make sure that people are allowed to do their protests. People are allowed to, state their opinions, to raise a fuss, because that's what this is about. This is about, raising this issue in a very public way in order to start a conversation that desperately needs to happen in this country. Hey everybody, thanks for watching this video. If you want to see more like this, please hit the subscribe button below. And if you want to support truly independent, non-corporate media, go to our Patreon page and become a patron. Patreon.com/TYTNation.